Welcome to the Oceania 7K World Cup 2026 recap show. We're here to get you caught up in the action, feature amazing scores, and maybe spotlight certain people involved with the biggest edition of the tournament. We're now here to showcase the events of the finals weekend, where the remaining 6 teams will be cut in half to get our podium placers. It was a pretty crazy weekend, so let's get to recapping, shall we?
As I believe a lot of people have been expecting, this is a match that nobody could have missed in the losers bracket. You know how it rolls down here, and so the likes of China and Japan, who fought to the very bone. Let's investigate the scene, shall we? In the start of the match, we see that Japan wins the rolls with a roll of 60 over China's 16 to begin with, where we got Japan protecting the likes of Rice for Resublimity to counteract that of China's Rice consistency, and China to respond with a protect on L1 Isekai no Hausukatai, as expected from them, looking to utilize the long note category to its full capacity. Following this goes out the likes of Rice Freeze, 6 billion Monsen, and Ellen for Fragile Violet, as they were similar to each other's protect to a degree. Japan begins this match on the World Cup design team's punchline, as it feels like Rice 7 Beyond Wood, using the full version as opposed to his 4-digit Mania World Cup counterpart, as Japan will take this map by 15,000 points to start things off. China needed a hint of team consistency to tackle that Britannic and Suzuha, which is why they went well to Ellen through Plumage, which goes well the same way we see Van Wilder complement the scores of Turks in his usual doings. This is a continued back and forth between points for both teams until next thing you know, Japan goes bold into the match this early with our EX1 OS original, Spark of Mayhem, being thrown out. Japan takes this out with physicality in the bag as China takes Ellen to Peach Pit and Cyanide, only for Japan to take 2 close points at one after another with sub 10k score victories on Rice 5 Save Patron and Ellen 5 Daisy Blue. Afterwards, Japan is up 4-2 and is looking to continue that streak for the wall coming. We head into the next bandwave as Japan wins again with a 99 roll and China rolled 95. This exact same trend we've been seeing throughout the World Cup this year. How do we keep getting this again? Anyways, EX2 How to Make Katoga music gets banned, but Japan, alongside China, taking out EX3 Magical, Very Magical World, because as you'd expect, extreme picks in the penultimate round to Grands are bound to be the death of so many teams. With Japan in the driver's seat, they brought out their protective Rice for Resublimity and won 14k as we see the trend of both teams winning picks after the other again. Following China with LN1, Rice 2, until Japan is finally at match point. China's almost out of options, which is why they had to try and use this moment to recollect themselves to bring it all back into their swing, as second wins are no longer an option in this round. So the next motive is forcing you to win as much as you can to unleash the tiebreaker card against Japan to secure chances of staying within reach of the podium, no matter what the naysayers say. It is a bloodbath for them as they go full throttle in Hybrid 1, Rise 6, and manage to eke out a victory in Hybrid 3 to bring it all closer to home. Everyone manages to go tiebreaker on Coast Frostwalker, the same Grand Finals OS original tiebreaker from the Catch World Cup 2024 iteration, as everyone's nerves have officially skyrocketed with teams' lives being on the line. As daring as Japan is to work their way into the podium after years of trial and error, they fight the seasoned Chinese on the map as everyone goes in well. Misses left and right throughout the first half, with Japan working with anything they could off any misses bled from Qing Jiding and Turks, before ultimately the advantage grew too high as fatigue kicked in from the halfway mark of the map. 9 PM is the hour that falls from China's grace for the last time as Japan takes this by 50,000 and punches their ticket into the conditionals against that of between Indonesia and Peru. Like it was destined from the start, this was one of the most intense matches we had all throughout this weekend, and the only one that went tiebreaker at that. So China did not go without one hell of a fight at that. Japan moved on to the conditionals while fighting for their chance at a potential podium finish in this World Cup, so the best of luck goes to them moving forward. Continuing on from that note, however, Saturday had another match that would go to decide the conditionals match with Japan on the board, as this was the last fight between Indonesia and Peru after such an insane run in the 7-key World Cup this year that both the teams have committed to. The match began swift as Indonesia began picking up points right off the hook that pulls, hoisting out a point for Ellen5 Daisy Blue. A lot of points from there, however, they're quite literally around 5,000 points for a while, which is scary to know given how neither side has such an objective advantage. You should see how these went for yourself.
Rushes are starting to come out. Yeah, falls a second time. Josiah trades one in the back. It's 6,000 points going into the outro. There's some cores coming through here. Gotta keep it clean through the exit. 4,000, 5,000 points. Shiu is hanging on. The last couple. Oh no, the transitional moment. Oh god, a full combo reset on the side of Peru, and all the trades going through. Gonna be enough at the end. That is 6,000 points.
Shrunk and his leader swapped. Indonesia, they take it back. Yan and Shiu will both trade. Will this be enough for Indonesia to hold on to a second straight breakpoint? But Ravko will come by the end. And Peru, they might have found a lifeline. The point is...
Miss here at the end. 4,000, 3,000. Anta, you've got to hold on here, man. Less than 2,000 points left to go here as we make it through this outro section. Can Indonesia hold on? Anta with another massive miss, and the lead swings back over into Peru. Can they hang on to capitalize on the miss here? Divisa, Ravko falls, and Peru take the break point at the end.
You can tell the teams gave Spark and Reveal a field day there. Anywho, the match continues on as that's where the chaos ended, with Peru taking a victory more objective than anything so far in EX3 magical, very magical world against Indonesia with victory of 60,000 score. Everyone's tied at 3-3 as that was unfortunately the final point Peru could get before everything stacked up against themselves, with Indonesia throwing hands on Rice 1 Faraway Sky, Hyper 3 Ghost Girl could not be killed, EX1 Spark and Mayhem, and finally Rice 2 Cairo to top it up for Indonesia on this round. Eliminate Peru once and for all. Peru is a team that has put a lot of will in throughout their tournament run this iteration, especially following when they ended in the same place in last year's 7K World Cup finals as well, while Indonesia went to face Japan here as a result of both of these initial losers bracket matches ending how they did. Nonetheless, congratulations to both teams for making it this far, and I wish the best of luck for Peru's development in the future as they've got some sauce to leave on the table.
This tournament has been dominated by two teams, South Korea and the Philippines, our number 1 and 2 seeds respectively. So far, South Korea has gone through this tournament unscathed, never losing a single map. The Philippines, however, is no slouch. Even though they have lost a fair few amount of maps, they have been just behind South Korea and sometimes have even surpassed their scores in previous pools. With that being said, it's time. These two finally get a chance to duke it out, with an extra life in the grand finals on the line. After rules, Korea bans Rice 3 and protects EX2, whereas PH protects Rice 4 and bans Hybrid 3. The first pick is for the Philippines, and they end up going with LN1. On average, a team's first pick is one that they feel extremely consistent on, but the first drop on the maps come from Sani666. It eventually is traded out by Han Jae-hoon. However, once the Philippines drops one more, it's spelled doom, especially with YZ's full combo. South Korea start off the match with an early breakpoint. Continuing, South Korea went for EX1, looking to do a physicality check on PH. This was one of the best possible picks for them, because even with Oji-san holding a combo for so long, neither player on the Philippines was able to touch the Korean powerhouse of YZ and Dresser, only having 2 misses each on the OC original. We're still early in the match, and we move on to the protect of Philippines, Rice 4. 2 misses come from both players on the Philippines, and already people thought it was over. But just as the map was about to end, Kaokai went from top scoring in the lobby with a 99.9% accuracy, dropping all the way down to a 99.7, bottom scoring. And finally, South Korea has lost their first map of the tournament. Korea now has much less pressure on them to win every single map. But that doesn't mean they can hit the brakes just yet. They move on to Hybrid 1, allowing us to see every single map type in the pool. The highlight of the map was definitely the FG from Oji-san, getting almost a 990k. However, even with that, Korea's team score was just too strong to overcome, and now they're back to being up. So far, the Philippines has been consistent on core jack throughout the tournament, mostly because of the accuracy from Boji. And it seems like they wanted to gamble on that ability, going for Rice 3. But Boji is just not able to carry hard enough, and they lose another breakpoint. Now with a sizable lead, Korea can go for the scarier picks, such as LN3. This is the map where a trend started to show. Once again, Oji-san sets an insane score FCing the map. However, Sani is just not able to keep up with Han Jae-hoon, and if the Philippines wants to continue going, they need to find a way to match the second player for Korea. The walls are slowly closing around the Filipinos, and for what could be their final Hail Mary, we see Rice 5 after the bans of Rice 6 and LN5. The combination of Kalkai and YZ on technical maps is extremely hard to overcome, and we see that in full force with this map. The Philippines just stood no chance, losing by the widest margin in the match. Final pick for Korea, and obviously they go for their protect. And they show off just how dominant they are on these more difficult picks, winning by a whopping 63k. In the end, Korea moves on to grand finals on the winner's side, whereas the Philippines will have to face off against the winner of the next match to get a second chance to defeat the super team.
This was the match to determine the last podium contender besides South Korea and the Philippines. Japan's rice powerhouse went against Team Indonesia, whose members were betting it all on their LN consistency. On Indonesia's second pick, it worked because they were able to gain a slight foothold early on with a few misses from Misa on Japan's side, which were enough to tip the scales. This lead was volatile with eventual misses from both sides slowly increasing into a flurry at the end of the map, but it all narrowly worked out into even trades that kept Indonesia's lead intact, getting them their first point. As for Japan's forte, their rice picks, they all went as one would expect, with consistent leads that once attained they would never give up on. Even though Indonesia was strong enough to never let Japan take any landslide victories, they were basically depending on Japan making mistakes, leaving them a step behind for the remaining map, even on the LN picks. Therefore, when Japan picked their last rice map at match point, podium point even, Indonesia's elimination was clearly imminent, yet they still fought hard to keep the match going, keeping neck-to-neck pace with Japan until the halfway point. The scoreline was squarely at the 0 mark, not moving a millimeter. Japan was the first to flinch, letting Indonesia gain a lead, but with an unfortunate combo reset, Japan was able to flip the scoreline and run away with it until they had sealed their podium spot permanently. With that, Japan has achieved their first ever top 3 placement in the 7K World Cup, and while they're making one more push to face the Philippines in the grand finals, Team Indonesia can now breathe a sign of relief for taking home 4th place for their country for the first time, beating their performance from last year. And that ends our finals recap. We have finally reached the point where this tournament's podium placers have been determined. These teams are South Korea, the Philippines, and for the first time in MWC 7K history, Japan. All that is left is to determine the order these 3 will be in when all things are said and done next week. Again, whether you're supporting your country, players, and whatnot, make sure to stick around for the grand finals weekend where certain questions will be answered. Will South Korea continue to be the absolute titans of Oceania 7K? Will the Philippines do a repeat of their championship run back in 2023? Or will Japan, against all odds, become the 4th country to stand atop the Oceania 7K mountain? If you're curious, we'll be here to recap what happens, so stay tuned for more breakdowns, highlights, and everything you need to stay caught up with the competition. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.